Before there were words, there were symbols. Before books, there were temples. And before your thoughts ever formed, there was the vibration of your soul's memory. What you're experiencing now is not a lesson in something new, it's the resurfacing of something ancient, something hidden inside you all along. The ancient Egyptian initiates never believed in teaching truth through words. They believed in revealing it through silence, through vibration, through sacred rituals that reawaken what you already are. Because the soul does not evolve by learning. Merit evolves by removing the layers that never belonged. You didn't find this message by chance. You didn't stumble here by mistake. Something within you has already opened a portal that didn't appear on your screen but within your being. That's how this begins. A subtle shift, a quiet question, a growing discomfort with the truths you were told to believe. That's the invisible call. The Egyptians called it nor the divine breath that stirs the soul before the mind is even aware. It doesn't shout, it doesn't command, it simply whispers. And if you're still here, it means something inside you heard it. Before there were doctrines, before there were creeds, there was the frequency of remembrance. The Egyptian initiates passed through chambers of silence not to sleep, but to awaken. Their bodies would rest, but their consciousness would cross beyond the veil. When they returned, they weren't taught anything. They hadn't studied, they remembered. This wasn't learning, it was frequency, a sacred technique, not forbidden because it was dark, but hidden because it was too radiant to be controlled. The truth is, every soul carries a sacred name, a vibrational signature that cannot be spoken, only embodied. This name is not written in books, it's etched in your essence, pulsing quietly beneath all the noise. The world tried to bury it, to distract you, to convince you that you are something smaller, weaker, safer. But the memory has not died. The resonance has not faded. You don't need to find it too, just need to remember. Not everything was lost. Some things were hidden on purpose. The technique of vibrational remembrance wasn't erased by history, it was sealed inside the only place no one would think to look within you. Because if the soul truly awakens, it becomes sovereign, and a sovereign soul cannot be ruled. That's why the temples were closed, the symbols distorted, the inner path replaced by rituals that lacked meaning. But the truth was never in the ceremonies. It was in the space behind them. It was in who you are without the world layered on top. The ancient priests understood. If you want to hide something sacred, hide it where no one will think to search their own being. And so, the knowledge was sealed not in scrolls, but in the vibration of your breath, in the rhythm of your heart, in the stillness that lives beneath your thoughts. Thousands of years passed, but now, the vibration is rising again. Not as something new, but as something that never left. The world tried to silence it, but you cannot destroy what is etched into the soul. There are 3 keys to remembrance, and each one already lives within you. The first is vibrational silence, not the absence of sound, but the presence of stillness. In the chambers of ancient temples, initiates would sit in total silence, not to listen, but to dissolve the noise. Because as long as the mind is speaking, the soul waits, and in that silence, something begins to stir a resonance that doesn't speak in words, but in presence. The second key is the living symbol. Egyptian symbols weren't decorations, they were activators. The Eye of Horus, the Serpent of the Uraeus, the Lotus Flower, each carried a vibration meant not to be understood, but remembered. When you engage with these symbols through presence, you don't imagine them, you awaken them. The third key is resonance with the hidden name, the sacred Ren, the divine identity your soul carries from before time. It's not something anyone can tell you, it's not even something you can say aloud. It is something you live. When you move in alignment with that frequency, the world around you begins to reflect it. You stop seeking signs, because your life becomes the sign. You no longer need to be convinced, because you just know. When these 3 elements align, silence, symbol, and resonance, the technique doesn't just awaken in you, it begins to move through you. The ancients said, your real name is remembered, not spoken. You'll know what's true not by how it sounds, but by how it feels. Truth doesn't argue, it reveals, it doesn't explain, it expands. If it brings stillness, warmth, peace, before understanding, that's truth. And when you touch it, you won't need proof. You'll simply be the proof. Your breath will change, your posture will shift, and without learning anything new, you'll realize, this has always been inside me. The soul doesn't speak in words, it speaks in vibration. Your divine name doesn't need to be known, it needs to be embodied. And when you do, the universe, it stops responding to your ego and begins responding to your essence. You don't seek signs anymore, you are the sign. You are the doorway, you are the password. And in that recognition, something opens not in the sky, but in the body, in the chest, in the deep knowing that cannot be named. There comes a moment in the journey when the seeker stops moving with their feet and begins to move with presence. This is the crossing. In Egyptian tradition, it was symbolized by the weighing of the heart not as judgment, but as alignment. To cross the veil, the soul had to be light. Not by forgetting who they were, but by burning away what they never were. And that's where you are now. The false layers fall away, the roles, the masks, the borrowed truths. What remains is the essence, the vibration, the pure self that never needed to be taught. You don't need to die to cross the veil, but the persona you created to survive must be left behind. The one who learned to shrink, to control, to impress, to hide must dissolve, because the real you doesn't try to belong. It already does. At the crossing, your breath deepens. Your words lessen, and you stop seeking a path, because you've become the path. Life responds differently now, not because you've changed what you know, but because you've changed what you are. After this crossing, the Egyptians didn't give the initiate a new name. They gave them a new rhythm. Because one who remembers doesn't just think differently, they walk differently. There's a weight to their presence, a quiet radiance that doesn't demand attention. It simply is. You stop asking for permission to be whole. You stop shrinking to fit into old roles. You begin to vibrate more than you speak. You eat with reverence. You breathe like you're praying, not to impress the divine, but to embody it. The real test of remembrance isn't in solitude. It's in movement, in the world. Can you remember when you're dismissed, judged, ignored? Can you hold the frequency in the noise? Because that's when remembrance becomes real. Not when you're meditating, but when you're living. That's the true ritual, to stay awake in a world that wants you to forget. To radiate coherence without needing to convince, to walk as a lighthouse without needing to shine. Because your frequency isn't a performance, it's a presence. And when you live that presence, you activate remembrance in others. Something. It is happening in the world, but it's not loud. It's not on the news. It's not trending. And that's why it's real. In the stillness of kitchens, in the pause between breaths, something ancient is stirring. People are stepping away from the noise, feeling the pull inward, not to escape the world, but to remember what cannot be taught. The Egyptians called it the Shamsu, the hidden initiates. Returning across time, not to create a new religion, but to embody a living memory. You are not alone. And this remembrance is spreading in silence, not through dogma, but through vibration, not through sermons, but through eyes that meet and simply know. You've already been the mirror for someone. Maybe you didn't notice it. Maybe you were silent, but something in your presence reminded them of something they forgot. That's the ripple. That's the real revolution. You don't have to preach, you just have to be. And that being plants a seed of memory, of light, of sovereignty. The Egyptians called it hiko, magic, not of rituals, but of alignment. And every time you choose presence over performance, stillness over reaction, truth over comforts, you become that mirror. If you're here now, it means the portal has already opened within you. This wasn't just a video. This was the activation of something ancient inside your soul. Don't let it fade. Leave your signal in the visible world. Right, I remember, not for views, not for validation, but to mark the moment your soul awakened. Share this with someone whose memory is stirring. Subscribe not to follow, but to walk together as initiates, remembering the same flame. Because the waiting is over, the remembrance has begun, and it begins with you.